pissing, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Long as I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. Sports coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, 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 Boogie like pissing, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. I thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your shame for the championship. Fucking on town, duck down. Falcons, pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy and you probably smell the crooked referees or Roger Goodell. Yeah, probably like this and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like this and I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome. We're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys, where we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports fam. Shout out to you guys, man. What's popping? Round of applause for the great Saint Think Tank. Round of applause for the great Saint Think Tank. Appreciate y'all joining me for this episode of the show. Much love to the fam. Man, I'm fired up. We a couple of weeks off from the start of training camp for our Black and Gold, as the Saints today announced the schedule for the 2023 training camp. We up in this thing, man. So we'll go over this right here and talk about this today. And of course, this sparred and opened up some things about the training camp. I know I've been talking about it over the last several shows about doing the show, talking about some of the X factors going into training camp. But guess what? This is the show. This is the show. We're going to talk about it. So anyway, let's get right off into it, fam. Let me give you all a shout out. Thanks to all the diehards in the building, the great Saint Think Tank, the best in the business. Much love to you guys. Appreciate y'all being in the live stream. Please do me a service. As I always say, please feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and feel free to share the show on your social media feed in Saints groups. We love y'all guys. We appreciate all the great stuff y'all do. And we about playing it forward, man, for real, man. As you're going to see in the next couple of weeks, we got some announcements that's coming out, man, and it's all because of the love. And I'm telling you, man, that's how you're supposed to live. So anyway, with that being said, man, let's move forward into the show. Announcement of the training camp, man. And let's just go into a report here and hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Here we go.
Their team back on the practice field. Here's Garland Gillen.
2 weeks from today, the Saints will be back on the field as they kick off training camp 2023. I'm sure it'll be 95 degrees with a ton of humidity on July 26th. Yes, the days of West Virginia and 60 degrees are long gone. The Saints will conduct 22 practices in total. 7 of those practices will be open to the public. 3 of those will be in July. On Monday, July 31st, well, that will be the first day of full pads for the Black and Gold. That one will be a can't miss. The Saints will also practice with the Chargers in California and host the Texans for workouts in New Orleans. Those, unfortunately, will be closed to the public.
All right, that's some of the report covering some of the news from the Saints practices as well. And I happened to pass over there. I was driving past there the other day, and I seen they got the bleachers set up. They got a new setup I guess they're going to do there as well. So, you know, it's very exciting for the Saints. We're getting ready to get into the season. And remember, a lot of excitement is rolling around, man. It's very positive because a lot of people expecting, the Saints to do a lot better than 7 wins from last year. With the type of money they spent and the things that they added to the team, a lot of people are looking at the Black and Gold and saying, man, it's time for the Saints to pay dividends in a major way. So, and it does. It starts, man. It started during the mini camps, and I'm pretty sure that the Saints, a lot of the big names, are working behind the scenes, man, getting the camaraderie, getting ready for the start of this season. So we talked about and covered it on Alvin Kamara, what he had going on with him. We talked about and covered that on another stream. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how the Saints go moving into this thing. But training camp is getting ready to roll, man. So you guys seen the report, And as inspired by the report, I wanted to kind of touch on a few of these things, man. So, let's talk about some of this, man, in moving forward into the season. And this is spurred by Bob's article about the Saints' most underrated season additions. Now, I'm gonna show you what he some of the people he thrown out there in the active offseason for the Saints. The two additions have flown under the radar, but could be crucial to the team. And he covers just a few of those guys. And we talk about some of the additions here moving forward, which kind of spurred me to think about what happens with the Saints moving forward and who could be some of their game changers or X factors into the season, or guys that we need to look out for. Now, of course, we know about all of the regular names. We know about the Mike Thomases, the Rashid Shaheeds, and those guys, as Bob in this article covers it as we get into it. A lot of excitement around the Saints as they approach the upcoming season. Team will have an entirely new look in certain spots at the aggressive free agency period and productive draft. Different look starts at the most scrutinized position in sport. The quarterback steps into the spot where the Saints started 6 players in 34 games since Drew Brees retired. And that's interesting, man, to be how that all, we're getting sorry about that. All right. So and of course you talk about New Orleans' success hinges on how well Carr plays, but he won't be the only new face wearing the fleur-de-lis this upcoming season. So the X factors, we'll get into it. Running back finally has some depth. We talked about this on the previous stream. Kamara, the 1,000-yard rusher, Jamal Williams behind him, rookie, third-round pick, Kendre Miller. The defensive line will have a new look at after adding 4 players, including some revamped people at the defensive tackle position. Other than Carr, people will be paying a lot of attention to the team's top draft picks, Brian Bresee and Isaiah Foskey. With so many new faces and other important players returning from injury, there are a few key additions that have gone under the radar. Let's see what Bob talks about. Here are 2 new Saints players that few people are talking about that'll be critical to the success of the team. Foster Moreau, who fought off cancer to make it to the Saints. You want to talk about a guy that is going to have some. And listen, even though Foster Moreau was a late season acquisition, the Saints were always interested in him, and he was interested with the Saints. We knew that, and this is a safety blanket of sorts for Derek Carr because he played with this guy in the Raiders, and Foster's a New Orleans kid through and through, New Orleans man through and through, went to LSU, drafted by the Raiders. Now he's a Saint. He wears the black and gold. I think it's an awesome pickup by the Saints to bring Foster Moreau here to act as a security blanket for Derek Carr along with Juwan Johnson. And that's big. All right, so high school graduate, former LSU standout, Moreau's addition certainly isn't being overlooked by the family members and or the media. However, his presence has been very much understated in national circles. A 4th-round pick in 2019 by the Raiders, Moreau played with Carr for the first 4 seasons as a number 2 tight end with Darren Waller. Moreau had 91 catches, over 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. That includes a career-high 33 catches for 420 yards last season. He's 6'4", 250 pounds, an outstanding blocker with underrated athleticism as a receiver. He's sneaky. Yes, capable of short and intermediate pass catching, catches the ball really well, the speed to make plays down the seam. He did have some drops the last year too as well. His size gives him an advantage over most defensive backs, often forcing opponents to use athletic linebackers on him in coverage. He's sneaky, man. He ain't no lumbering tight end. He does have a degree of athleticism to him. He ain't beating you down the block, but he ain't no chump either. So Moreau gave Carr a reliable intermediate security blanket for 4 years with the Raiders. Expect him to do the same with the Saints over his 33 catches in 26 resulting in either a first down or a touchdown. That's big. Moreau just had 26. He says just turned 26, may not get the majority of the targets at the tight end position because of the presence of Juwan Johnson. However, he brings a bona fide inline receiving threat that the team has not had at the position in quite some time. It will also benefit from the running game. Foster Moreau is another one of those things. We talk about underrated signings. Jamal Williams, to me, even though a lot of people see him, that will be I guess I can term it as an impact signing. You see what I'm saying? When the season is over with, you're going to hear that impact signing, that type of thing. So that's going to be cool to see how all that twists and turns as we move forward. So anyway, Foster Moreau's presence also allowed the Saints to do more creative ways that they use Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill because of his relationship with Carr. Don't be surprised if Moreau establishes his new career best as a receiver while adding vastly improved inline run blocking to the New Orleans Saints. So it'll be interesting to see how all this will shake and fold because, listen, there is no other tight end room like what the Saints have. There is no other tight end. And listen, I'm just gonna keep a real deal with you. The Saints tight end room is there are three types of tight ends. If you won't call Taysom Hill a tight end, you got Juwan Johnson, who's not your traditional tight end. He's a guy that can be moved offline, off the offensive line. He can be spread out. He's a former wide receiver that blocks really well, that catches well. He's a red zone threat as well, and he's improved. And I expect him to keep improving. And Foster Moreau's your traditional style tight end who comes here. He's good. He had several years of playing for the Raiders. He's very familiar with Derek Carr and what Derek Carr's tendencies are on the football field. So he's interesting as more of a traditional looking tight end. And then Taysom Hill is anything but that. Taysom Hill is not a tight end, even though we call him a tight end. He's everything else. And it's interesting to see just how Taysom Hill will fit in what the Saints are doing. We'll see. But it's the most unique tight end room. It's the most unique tight end room that we've seen in some time. And of course, don't forget, they still have Jesse James that they added to the team, who's just a big lumbering tight end who, can help out in the red zone. He's there. Lucas Krull is also there as well. So it's quite a few things going on there with the Saints tight end room. So anyway, let's move on to the next one right here as we talk about after he gave that out, Nate Shepherd, the big defensive tackle. Now, Nate Shepherd was a guy we kind of looked at. We thought Nate Shepherd was a guy that we thought was going to be the starter. I was like, I think he's going to be more of a rotational guy. And ultimately, you'll probably see Kalen Saunders, Big Saunders, as we like to name him, Big Saunders, and Brian Brees eventually be the starting guy with Nate Shepherd in the rotation. That is pretty cool rotation there. But he's brought onto the team. Not much fanfare about Nate Shepherd as much as it is with Kalen Saunders, but New Orleans needed to retool the defensive tackle position after it greatly disappointed the last couple of years, especially after losing David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, and Kentavious Street in free agency. The Saints responded by adding free agent tackles Kalen Saunders and Shepherd and using their first-round choice on Clemson defensive tackle Brian Brees. Most of the offseason notoriety has gone to Brees and Saunders, an incredible athletic player with the Chiefs. However, Shepherd was actually signed by New Orleans before Saunders into a slightly more lucrative agreement. Now, a third-round pick back in 2018's draft but for the Jets out of Fort Hays State, Shepherd has shown improvement over each of the 5 seasons he's played. He's been an integral part of the highly ranked Jets defense back in 2022, contributing a sack and a half, 7 pressures, and 4 tackles for a loss and 417 defensive snaps, the second highest of his career. He's 6'4", 315 pounds, 29-year-old Shepherd is explosive off the snap. He's been graded much higher as a rotational pass rusher the last 2 years than against the run. However, he's also proved himself to be a capable run defender for the Jets unit that ranked 4th overall in 2022. The New Orleans Saints defensive tackle were abysmal last year. The position contributed to 14 and a half of the team's 94 sacks the last 2 years and was primarily responsible for the plummet to 24th against the run back in 2022. Now, Nate Shepherd will be an integral part of the interior rotation for the Saints this season. His playing time versus Brees and Saunders will be dependent on his ability to stop the run and, of course, pass rush disruption. On paper, the trio looks stronger than what New Orleans had in the last 2 campaigns. Now, granted, there is a lot of stuff that we can talk about here when you get down to the brass tacks about the interior tackle position, because, yes, that wasn't definitely in the Achilles heel that hurt the Saints last year, stopping the run. And then also, because I'm a great Saint think tank historian along with Uncle Paulie and the professor. Shout out to them. This is the thing. We knew last year a lot of the Saints' woes, despite the fact the secondary and the defensive line, the ends were firing off, getting sacks. The interior of the Saints' defensive line was just they were just not that good, and a lot of that, in my perspective, was done because of the inability of the Saints' offense to keep the defense off the field. Like, It was a ridiculous amount of bullcrap football by the Saints offense last year. A lot of bullcrap football that had the offenses going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and putting the defense on the field. How many games did we see last year when the Saints defense were, their time of possession was ridiculous? They on the field for 30 plus minutes of the game, trying to stop the opposing offense from moving up and down the field, getting the ball back for the offense only for them to go 3 and out and put the defense back on the field. So eventually because the offense did not handle its business, was irresponsible and did not handle its business, somebody, had to do something. And eventually a lot of what they didn't do fell on the defense. So eventually you see certain parts of the Saints defense just start breaking down naturally. If we're going to have good football, all 3 levels of the Saints team have to be good. They have to be successful at what they do to have a total team that can take it to the big dance, that can go far. That's the part of it. So each team has to carry its own water. The Saints offense in many of the games, that's why we finished 7-10, did not carry the water. Somebody had to, and many last year, the special teams and the Saints offense didn't carry the water. The defense had to, and eventually some breakdown is going to happen and some deterioration is going to happen, and it happened in the center of the Saints defense. But anyway, the Saints have made major splashes through underrated free agent signings in recent years. Demario Davis in 2018 tops a list that includes defensive tackle Malcolm Brown, defensive end to New Passenger. New Orleans' success in 23 could depend on whether Foster Monroe and Nate Shepard add their names to the list. And Shepard is a guy that Bob's right. A lot of people, he called it correctly. A lot of guys underrated off season. We talk about guys like that, right? You talk about guys like that, underrated guys and what they'll bring to the team. So anyway, let's move that into the season. We talk about some of the free agent acquisitions as we talk about the Saints camp and they're getting ready to fire up camp. Let me take this opportunity now to move forward into and discuss which players we're talking about, players that will help impact the team in terms of, let's say, or better yet, let's term it like this: X factors, guys that we're paying attention to. Now, of course, I'm pulling out the names, the well-known names. Okay, I'm pulling out the Juwan Johnsons. I'm pulling out the bigger names, like you see a Kendre Miller or guys like that. We're talking about other guys, the other guys outside of those guys, the guys that's in the rotation, behind, outside of the top 3 guys, that we look. That's the guys I'm looking at. The guys outside of the top 3 guys. Can those guys make a break and have it? Now, eventually I'm gonna have to do a full show where I cover a lot of them, because I had initially I had 12 names and I had to kind of break it down to just several players, because I didn't want to have a damn hour show, right? Just want to be able to drop in on you. So let's start it off in no particular order at all. Let's just talk about, let's see how many I got: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 of them, 7, 8 or 9 players that I can, as we deem as a X factor, okay, or potential X factor, people that we need to look out for during camp, right? That'll be better stated. Number 1, no particular order. How about James Washington? Now remember, the Saints added a lot of wide receivers this year, right? They added a ton of wide receivers. Very interesting room they added. We're going to talk about a couple of these guys because it's interesting. James Washington. I know we're going to talk about some other ones, but James Washington to me is very interesting. The Saints picked this brother up, right? Picked him up. And of course, you can see his player history right here. They got it, neatly placed there about where he was and, prior to signing with the Saints back early in this free agency period, or toward the middle or whatever, March, April, back in May, late May, he signed with the Saints. And you can see prior to that with Pittsburgh, he was with Dallas, for, about a year or so. He got waived in 23. And then the Giants picked him up. He stayed there for a little bit. And then ultimately the Saints picked him up. Now, James Washington is still a young player. He's 27 years of age. He was a former, I think, 2nd round draft pick by the Steelers. James Washington has a few injuries, but he can play. You know, I know he had some injuries. He was kind of banged up a little bit, but at the end of the day, James Washington is a player that does add value to the Saints. He's a veteran wide receiver with speed. He's not as fast as he was. He has some injuries, but he's still very dangerous. 5'10", 5'11", 13 pounds. He gets down the field. He has a great set of hands. He runs decent routes. And James Washington is a veteran. He done seen some stuff. So I'm not saying that he will be what he was back in 2018 or 2019 or what have you. But what does James Washington? He's a veteran wide receiver with speed and skill that comes to the Saints wide receiver room. Anyway, the idea is like family members pushing, hey, Q, which one of these guys gets Tre'Quan Smith out of here? It's several of them during camp. And I'm saying this guy could be an X factor. So going into camp, a few names just to keep an eye on going into camp. James Washington is one. Very smart signing by the Saints. It'll be interesting to see how James Washington does in the wide receiver room. We know our top three, but who are the other guys that can kind of make a name for themselves in that rotation? Could James Washington be a guy that helps him? So he's another guy, no particular order. Then next on the list is A.T. Perry. Now we know about A.T. Perry. The Saints selected A.T. Perry in the draft this year. And he's a big wide receiver, about 6'4", 200 plus pounds. He had reported 12 it was either 12 or 17 drops during his college career. And you go back and watch some of the drops, it's just him, not because he's garbage, it's just concentration drops. Like he's trying to move, he's trying to take off without catching the ball, stuff like that. And then you see him catch difficult passes. It's just a concentration thing. So it's not like A.T. Perry has, clumsy hands or whatnot. It's concentration drops. So he needs to kind of focus on staying there, getting the ball, then taking off. Cody Burns can help him with that. But you don't overlook the talent that A.T. Perry has. And this guy is very talented. He's another big wide receiver with speed that can help the Saints. 2-year starter, 2-time first team all ACC, former high school basketball and long jumper. So he has a lot of skill that can help the team moving forward. He's 4.45 in the 40. So a big 6'4" wide receiver with 4.45 speed, can catch the ball. This is another guy we need to pay attention to because this could really help us in the wide receiver room. So I think really Tre'Quan Smith, I'm going to just go ahead and say it. Tre'Quan Smith, by all indications, should be up out of here. I mean, you got James Washington, who's healthy, who's just good. Then you have A.T. Perry, a big, fast wide receiver that the Saints drafted that they're high on. He's another weapon, a tall weapon with speed that can be a red zone weapon and in a difficult matchup for smaller cornerbacks. So very competitive room. And then, of course, this guy here is one of the more ultimate boom or bust prospects insofar as very intriguing. 6'5", 6'6", some say 6'6", 6'5", 215 pounds. Shaq Davis out of South Carolina State. Did film work on Shaq Davis, huge wide receiver, big catch radius. We talk about catch radius, as we mentioned. I should have mentioned that with A.T. Perry, good catch radius, but you talk about a guy like Shaq Davis and what he brings to the forefront. Speed is one thing. You talk about Shaq Davis, those long strides. He definitely needs work on his route running. But in terms of high pointing the ball and throwing the ball anywhere around him, kind of contorting his body to make grabs, a big red zone weapon. He's raw, but has plenty of talent. So I don't know if I would factor him in, like if Shaq Davis in the mixture with a James Washington or A.T. Perry. Shaq comes from South Carolina State. So we'll see exactly how it all ferrets out. But A.T. Perry, looking at the film, is a little bit more developed than Shaq Davis is. And James Washington's a vet, so they're at different points. But Shaq Davis is very intriguing, man. Very intriguing. And then when you look at him, like when he's out there on the field, he's difficult to miss because he's the biggest wide receiver you have. He's basically like a basketball player. He's long and he's tall and he got these big long arms and he can catch the ball over you. So, you won't be able to miss Shaq Davis. You won't be able to miss him out there. So 3 wide receivers to kind of keep an eye out on. We talked about James Washington, the veteran. How much more does he have? He's just 27 years old. Our newest draft pick, A.T. Perry, coming into the fold, push Traquan Smith out of here. And then Shaq Davis, a guy, depending on how ready Shaq Davis is, we know eventually he'll be a practice squad guy. If that's the, if he doesn't make the team or doesn't push, but it's serious competition in the wide receiver room. It really is. And these are 3 different guys at 3 different levels. You got a veteran, you got a drafted rookie, and an undrafted rookie. So all these guys are at different levels. And that would make it so incredibly interesting because they all bring a different element to the wide receiver room. And ultimately, when you talk about how many wide receivers do the Saints keep, that is, we thinking maybe 5 wide receivers perhaps. The Saints keep 5, well, you got 3 in there already. Then, of course, you have who's the 4th wide receiver? Is it one of these men? Is it James Washington? Is it A.T. Perry? Is it Shaq Davis? And then if you talk about the 5th guy, then we got to go into the return aspect because whoever it is, the 5th wide receiver is more than likely going to be a return man type, which is Keke Coutee or Lynn Bowden Jr., who I'll be looking at, as well. So don't forget to throw Kirk Merritt in there too, because he definitely wants to be in the mix any way he can be. Anyway, let's move on to, because I can keep talking about the wide receivers all day. How about this guy, 4th round draft pick, Nick Saldiveri, who the Saints picked up. This guy showed out at the Senior Bowl. It's a serious offensive lineman. He was a tackle. The Saints converted him to a guard. And that is what we focus on, like in terms of the Saints looking into the future. They reworked Andrus Peat deal for that 1 year. And Andrus, is pretty much look like he's going to be out of here after this year. Nick Saldiveri is lining up to be his replacement there. So it'll be interesting and intriguing, and keeping an eye on Nick Saldiveri because I want Andrus to be healthy, but Nick Saldiveri, man, it could be interesting. He might be a person that you might see in some role if injuries start to impact the Saints offensive line. But we know that it could be stated that the Saints did pick up a lot of offensive linemen, veteran linemen that they can count on in a small stretch of games. Like say, for instance, the top tackle that you had last year, your swing offensive lineman is James Hurst, right? If somebody has an issue, James Hurst pops right on in. If you have somebody that struggles, like if something happens at the guard position, does Nick Saldiveri jump over? Now, I think either guard position inside, that's James Hurst until Nick Saldiveri proves himself, right? And the only way I would say if there's a guard issue in the injury situation with all starters, you'll see Hurst before you see Nick Saldiveri. And the only way I'm thinking you might see Nick Saldiveri if there are multiple injuries to the offensive line and Hurst is somewhere else, then you see Saldiveri might be at a guard position. Say if there's an offensive issue with one of the tackle positions, you could see Hurst at the tackle position. And then, of course, if there's an issue at one of the guards, you could see Nick Saldiveri perhaps slide in at the guard position. So are we anticipating seeing Nick Saldiveri in a role depending on how the Saints offensive line looks? So the Saints do have depth and they do have good veterans. We talking about Billy Price at the center position. We talking about Storm Norton. You're talking about James Hurst there. And then Nick Saldiveri, we're looking at Nick Saldiveri being a guy that makes the squad as well. So that's 4 guys right there. Very competitive. But anyway, Nick Saldiveri is an offensive lineman that, I like a lot. And that's a guy you want to keep an eye on. There's a couple other guys that I want to throw at you, but we, keep an eye on Nick Saldiveri. I know he was dealing with some type of issue, and the Saints kind of had him sitting off to the side. So we'll have to monitor where he is in terms of his injury situation. How is he doing? Because we know Dennis Allen did make mention of one guy that might not be starting training camp. He might not be that. He didn't, relay who that guy was. So we don't know exactly who the hell the guy is. And I'm thinking it might be Nick Saldiveri. So we'll see. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully whoever it is, they make it. But Nick Saldiveri is the guy we have to look out for. But listen, Saints have good offensive line there. Another one of our draft picks from this year. Next one now, this is going to the defensive side of things, Jaren Cage. Now listen, Saints rotation got tore up. Onyemata out. Shy Tuttle out. Kentavious Street out. In is Kalen Saunders. In is Nate Shepard. In is Brian Breesy. In is Malcolm Roach. Roach signed a 1-year deal to re-up with the Saints. He's the only thing they kept from last year in terms of who gave the interior rotation anything at all. this guy right here, Jaren Cage, we did film work on our Patreon channel looking at Jaren Cage. And Jaren Cage is a guy that you need to pay attention to. Let me tell you something. He flashes on film. He's big, 6'3", I say 6'2", I say 6'3", 300 plus pounds. That 305 more than 305. But he doesn't move like that's the sticking point for the Saints defensive line. Like these massive guys, they're big, but they don't move like that. They don't move like big guys. They don't move like they're like Kalen Saunders. He beats more athletic defensive linemen that he played with Kansas City to the ball carrier. I mean, he attacks in a straight line and gets there. And I think he surprises a lot of running backs because a lot of people don't believe that a guy that big should be that fast. But he is. He defies logic. But Jaren Cage is another guy, and hey, he's an Ohio State guy, just like Billy Price, the backup center. But this guy here could play, man. And listen, a guy that needs to be watching out for his job is Malcolm Roach. Jaren Cage, man, could take Malcolm Roach's job. He can. Now, I like Roach a lot because Roach is athletic. He's energetic. I like him in the rotation. But Jaren Cage could be an issue, and I've been saying that for a while. But this is another guy you need to watch out for. He's a defensive tackle buried in the Saints depth chart. We do know, besides the top 3 guys the Saints have inside of their defensive line, there's still another guy they need to have there. Now, I've been saying this for a while. I think Tanu Passanio it's going to be that interior guy. It would be smart to do that because right now Passanio should be rated as your 5th defensive end, right? Because you got everybody ahead of him. You got Carl Granderson there. You got Cam, Carl, Peyton Turner, and then Isaiah Foskey, and then Passanio. So the Saints ain't paying Passanio to be a 5th defensive end. If anything, he should be if he's a 5th defensive end on the Saints team, then more than likely he'll be maybe a 4th defensive tackle, interior tackle, right? That's how I see it. So, if those guys are moving around on defensive end position, Passanio switches inside at this stage of his career should help out. But Jaren Cage is a dude that undrafted guy, has a chip on his shoulder, strong, has athleticism, and is smart. Watch out for this dude, man. So I'm putting him on your radar. Another player, and we talk about as we head to the linebacker room, is DeMarco Jackson. DeMarco Jackson looks like a football player. He is a football player. He does a hell of a job. Like I had to go back and look at his Appalachian State footage. We did that on Patreon, a TSC Patreon special. We went on there and looked at DeMarco Jackson's Appalachian State to get familiar with him because remember he got banged up last year, missed all of last season. But you forget that the guy, he's 6'1", 230 pounds. He's solid as a rock, 4.55 on the speed. He was a 2.5-year starter when he played that second All-American 21 in the Sun Belt, Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time first-team Sun Belt. The dude is a player, man. The Saints pick him up in the 5th round out of Appalachian State, sideline to sideline. A lot of film shows, I think even though you consider him more of a balanced dude, DeMarco Jackson, you can see that he loves run support. Like he loves run blitzing. He loves that. Dropping in the coverage, you need a little work on that, but he does have the speed to move around. They call him a linebacker. He looks like a big ass safety to me because he has pretty good lateral speed. He can get sideline to sideline for you. And DeMarco Jackson could be the future of the linebacker position, him and Pete Werner. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in the Saints linebacker run moving forward, man, for real. But DeMarco Jackson obviously is a guy that we need to keep an eye out on going into the season. All right, I got 3 more, family, and this is Jordan Howden, another one of our draft picks from this year. Remember, Saints picked up Howden, and I was like watching the draft, saying, man, what the hell is what are they doing? Why are they picking up a safety here? We know it. But when they signed all these guys, whether they were Jonathan Abram and you got Smoke Monday and all these guys, a lot of these guys are on 1-year deals. So Jordan Howden being drafted could represent being the future of the team. Now, we talk about Tyrann Mathieu at the back end of his career, even though he got a couple years left in him to kind of help us out. And then you look at Marcus May, who's still facing some, now that Elvin stuff is out of the way, Marcus May has DUI situation that has yet to be brought to a head here that he'll have to deal with coming up soon. So he'll be missing some games. Who do we have to slide in there? And Jordan Howden is a guy that a lot of people, the Saints are really big on him. We did film work on Jordan Howden on TSC Patreon. He is a phenomenal player. I listen. One thing I love about Jordan Howden is he has the ability. He is smart. He knows how to dissect plays. He has the speed to get to where he needs to be. He can tackle. There's a lot of good footage show Jordan Howden making tackles out in the open, in close and open territory when it's him and just the wide receiver or the running back or whatever. He makes the tackle and bring them down in the open field. When if he misses a tackle, they got a long run for a touchdown. Jordan Howden brings them guys down. Not only that, but when he sees an opportunity to go get an interception, he gets that damn interception. He'll jump, leap, and the thing I like about him is he has good hands for a defensive back because the majority of the time when he goes for an interception, he gets it. When he gets his damn hands on that ball, it's a pick. And I just love his vision and the potential of this kid. I really do. And I think this could be a very, in the future, this could be a very smart move because the Saints spent a lot of money on their safeties, and it's been a while since we drafted. You could talk about Marcus Williams, but there have been guys, it's been a while since the Saints drafted, and then they took Marcus high, but taking safeties like Howden where they took him at and they can be able to develop him into a potential starter, we'll see. But the kid has a lot of potential. I want to watch him in the see how he looks in the training camp. All right, and we talk more of our picks, and it goes down the line. Isaiah Foskey. What can I say about Isaiah Foskey that I haven't said before? This is the guy, when we looked at the draft, we talked about it. This is the man that reminds us the most of Cam Jordan. The guy is he has an excellent focus on football, athleticism. He got the sack gene. There's a few things that he got to work on. He got the size. He's about 6'5", 270-something pounds right now. He gained a little weight. And Isaiah Foskey is a guy that has the sack gene. And he got a limited, he got some moves, but the Saints bring him here, get him stronger, teach him a few moves to add to what he got. And Isaiah Foskey knows how to sack the damn quarterback. That's one thing he does well. He knows how to get to the quarterback, sack the quarterback, bring down the quarterback. That's what Isaiah Foskey does. Love what he does, what he brings to the squad. Love that. Love what he brings to the team. So that's something we want to watch at Isaiah Foskey. I could talk about Isaiah Foskey for the next 30 minutes, man. But he has the Cam, I call it the bright-eyed, bushy mentality, like Cam eyes bucking open. He's a player loaded with energy. Isaiah Foskey's eyes ain't bucking out like Cam's doing, but he still has that same infectious energy that, this guy is a guy that could play football. And I think that was such a great move by the Saints getting Isaiah Foskey because they understand before camp, be looking out for Cam getting his extension before training camp. We got a couple of weeks, and he wanted to get that settled before July got out of here. So that's another move the Saints will be reporting real soon, and we'll be on that as well. But it was a smart move by the Saints to get Isaiah Foskey, take Isaiah Foskey, bring him into the fold. Cam with 2 years remaining, going to have sign Cam to a 2-year contract, get Isaiah Foskey ready. We still got Peyton Turner there. Carl Grandison say, hold on, these young guys here, but I'm better than both these guys. And it'll be a battle for us. And the winners of this is the New Orleans Saints family base. We are the winners because we're going to see some young, athletic guys, the defensive ends, tan ass trying to compete with each other, and they all going to make each other better. And then finally, how can I leave without talking about Smoke Monday? A lot of people love Smoke Monday, his potential, his hit ability, very physical safety, great size on him, 6'2", 200-plus pounds on him. A lot of planning. He was a 2-year starter in Auburn. And he's a guy that can do a lot. And a lot of people like Smoke Monday. He got the coolest name on the team. It's either Smoke Monday or Storm Norton, right? But Smoke Monday is a guy that is awesome, man. I love how he played the game, but he's in a deep room. And once again, he was hurt last year, but what does he do this year? Can Smoke Monday make some noise for him, Smell? Could he bring the smoke? Could he throw up smoke signals there to kind of let people know he's there? All time will tell on that. So anyway, but that's a few of the people, just a few, that I wanted to kind of sprinkle game on with the family members to kind of get you guys like, okay, hey, man, this is something that we need to pay attention to. Let's look at these guys to see, what they look like moving forward. That's the positive thing about some of our young players, and really bucked about the Saints getting ready for the training camp, man, and to see some of these guys. But remember that, man, some of these guys to keep an eye on them: James Washington, the veteran; A.T. Perry, the draft pick; the undrafted guys, Shaq Davis, Nick Saldiveri. Is he healthy? Is he good to go? Jaron Cage, another guy that can sneak into your rotation. Malcolm Roach, watch out. DeMarco Jackson, the football player, will be able to see him, improve. Jordan Howden, I think he'll be the future of the safety position. Isaiah Foskey is obviously the future at the defensive end position. And Smoke Monday is trying to fight a deep safety room to try to get a job. So it's going to be interesting to see, and just fun as well, keep an eye out on some of these players, man, for real. So with that being said, let me get ready to get out on that. I appreciate you guys for joining me for this episode of The Coma. Please feel free to strike upon the like button. Please feel free to subscribe. If you aren't a subscriber, please feel free to share the show on your social media feed, man. We up in this thing talking black and gold, baby. So also feel free, family. The link is in the description section to join our mailing list, man. Join our mailing list, man, and be notified when we go live, when we do contests and giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Join the mailing list, man, and join the mailing list to keep up with us. So with that being said, I'm gonna get out on that. I appreciate the family members, man. Y'all have fun and have a good rest of your week, man. I'm gonna make sure I pop up and talk to y'all again moving forward. Much love to the fam, and who that take.
Yeah. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Long as I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. Sports coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. I thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your shame for the championship. Bucking on town, duck down. Falcons, pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy, then you probably smell the crooked referees on Roger Goodell. Yeah, probably like this, and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Pro Shop is the platform's store where you can go and buy all the latest merch to support the platform. Available at the Pro Shops, we have dozens of hundreds of products available for you and your family. Unisex tees for men and women, hoodies and sweatshirts, tank tops, kids and baby items, long sleeve tees, mugs, pillows, wall art, bath bedding, face masks, phone cases, stickers, bags, fanny packs, socks, hats, and many other items. Please feel free to check
TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, and even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport.